very often, or ever for that matter, producing more penalty yards, 142, than total yards, 136. Pete Carroll.
He wasn't able to get much going early, but Russ always finds a way, and he did again, and came up with some great throws and some scrambles at the right time. The big scramble on third down, the third down conversion right at the end, to Paul was a huge play. He always makes something happen at the end. We can count on that.
Rams wrap up the NFC West, beating the Titans in Nashville, 27-23. Another big performance for Todd Gurley, 118 on the ground, 158 in the air, and 2 scores.
I'm just excited about the win, man. Just out here playing a game that I love every Sunday and able to do good. Thanks to these guys in the locker room for helping me out. Still got a couple more games left, so we just want to finish strong.
Of course, today, NBA taking center stage. 5 games on the schedule. 3 o'clock Eastern, a rematch of the NBA Finals. LeBron and the Cavs will take on Kevin Durant and the Warriors in Oakland. Then at 5:30 Eastern in Boston, Wizards face the Celtics. 8 Eastern, the Rockets will take on the Thunder. And here in just a few minutes, the 76ers are at Madison Square Garden to face the Knicks. Pete Fox, NBC Sports Radio.
Ah, geez. It always goes like that. The Glit, you get something started. But yes, Brian Johnson sharing Christmas with us here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. That's right, Tri-Cities. We're no slackers here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. We got the NFL playoffs. We got the college football bowl season. Got 5 games in the NBA. Boy, Christmas. What does Christmas mean to you? Basketball. There you go. Right there. And we've also got gifts for you. Now, who am I? I'm the Santa Claus. Or, yeah, we'll call myself the Santa Claus of the Tri-Cities. Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program, Tri-Cities Sports Now, and it's on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, where we own the Tri-Cities. Got here a gift for you. This is John McEnroe, but seriously, we'll be giving that away later on in the program. I've also got prizes for anyone who wishes to call in, and I'll give that out there. I am actually being, like I said, the Santa Claus. And by Santa Claus, by the way, I don't want the Kinky Friedman definition of Santa Claus. You either know what that is or not, okay? I want the nice Santa Claus here. The Santa Claus that is very loving. The Santa Claus that is very generous. The Santa Claus, that's Marky Billson here. That's me. I'm talking my third person. All right, whatever. But what I want to talk about here, I've got a bunch of prizes here. I've got not only the John McEnroe book, but I'll also be, and it's sort of your choice, I've got a bunch of stuff to give away today. As a matter of fact, I've got a program from the ETSU Buccaneers' last football game at Kermit-Tipton Stadium. I've got another one from the Tennessee Volunteers' first football game after winning the national title in '98. I've got a Texas Rangers hand towel. If you happen to be visiting from Texas, we've got something for you. I remember myself, when I was a young boy, the Tennessee-Texas Roundup. We've got something like that here. So we've got a lot of prizes here. But I got to tell you something. There are a lot of people that might say, Christmas, bah humbug. But I got to tell you, the Grinch didn't steal Christmas. No. Kelly Tyer did. That's right. I'm working on Christmas. You want to know Christmas memories? Talk about what does Christmas mean to you. I remember 11th grade, University High School, English class, talking about what is going on in Christmas and all this, trying to place it. And what did I say Christmas meant to me? The Kelly Tyer Blue-Gray game. That's right. And I guess in a year here where I have had some losses, some really beloved family members and 2 grandparents who helped raise me and all that, I now can lament the loss of the Kelly Tyer Blue-Gray game. They're getting their money at Tire Company. I'm telling you right there. You know, haven't sponsored it in, what is it now, 16 years, and we're still, that's what they used to call it. Anyway, that was the blue-gray game. That's right, the blue-gray game. Can you imagine in this day and age a football game even being called such a thing as the blue-gray game? I mean, it's sad to think, but it is politically incorrect, and it shouldn't be, but it is. You know, tickets for the event, I did some online research, saw a ticket from the 1941 blue-gray game, actually started in 1939, and it had a Confederate flag with Old Glory, you know, the cross and all that. And you just, you know, it was like you were visiting Gettysburg. Only it was a Christmas Day football game, or at least it began to be a Christmas Day football game in 1979. Game has not been played in 14 years. So it's time for me to enlighten some people out there who may not know what the blue-gray game was. But it's, like I said, started in 1939. It was a college football all-star game. You know, seniors go and they showcase their skills for scouts. That was originally what it was planned as. And then it was moved in 1979 to Christmas Day. It had been played on New Year's, you know, late December before then. But it became an annual tradition in Montgomery, Alabama. I literally always wanted to go to a blue-gray game, okay? Some people once had Christmas in Williamsburg, the family. It was a horrible idea. My grandmother thought she was going to be able to get another family member who was getting a divorce back together with their, and that just wasn't going to work. That just, you know, so, but yeah, now, you see, I much rather would have been in the stands having my own section to myself in Montgomery, Alabama at the blue-gray game. Now, the catch of the blue-gray game was very unique. As best as I can explain this to people not familiar with it, it was a college football all-star game for players who sucked. I mean, there's no other way. Now, okay, that's a little harsh. But the deal was, because of that Christmas Day date, nobody who went to a bowl game was playing in the blue-gray game. It was a college football all-star game for the best players, the seniors, who wanted to play pros from lousy teams. They were teams that almost always had losing records. Or maybe they were from a small college, someplace like ETSU. Last blue-gray game was actually played in Troy, Alabama, but the last blue-gray game featured Brandon Colton from ETSU. Signed as a free agent with the Steelers, never showed up for training camp, or he showed up one day, said it wasn't for him, and then he left. So he was on the last ETSU football team before it was disbanded in the last blue-gray game. All right. Whatever school the players were coming from, though, in the blue-gray game, you could never tell which players they were, what team they came from, and it was because of their helmets. Of course, they all wore, you know, the same colored jerseys. It was like blue on it. It's like gray, you know, and all those. That you can figure out the color of the jersey that they wore. But they put the helmet, and the players who went to the blue-gray game, it was tradition to bring the stickers, the helmet stickers, from your school to give to the other players, and they were to interact them. And they put them all over their helmets. You had no idea, based on the helmet, what team they were from. So in other words, let's say it was this year, okay? Yeah, say Tennessee could have gone to a bowl game this year. It would have been the blue-gray game. It would have been the few of their seniors would have gone out there. Evan Barry back yet? Is he healthy? Can he go and try for the pro? Well, whatever. But you would have on that, you know, instead of just that T, then slap on a sticker that previously would have been sacrilege, like, say, Gators or the Vandy Star, you know, something like that, because they were all giving it away. And then those players, you'd get, you know, Webb from Vanderbilt who might play in this game, let's say, to showcase his skills for the pros. He'd put a Tennessee T on there right after he said it was so great to give Tennessee their 8th loss and be the first team to do that to the Vols. You know, no, now he'd be wearing that big T somewhere on a helmet. You'd also have, you'd get a guy from ETSU. They'd have the ET on there. You'd get a guy from Ole Miss. He'd put his script. I mean, all the stickers on a helmet. You might have, 20 stickers on a helmet. I'm not exaggerating. Could not figure it. You could probably say, I think that the base is orange and white. I think that's a lineman, but I just can't focus in on him in this game. That's... And as you might expect, blue-gray game meant that you were featuring players from northern schools against teams from southern schools. And I never quite figured out what you did with the players from the Pac-12. This brought forth another conundrum. What to do with these schools out west who wanted to play in the game. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just not getting the Confederacy from the University of Hawaii. I'm sorry. Seemed to me that, based on geography, you can't get much more south than that in the United States. But, let alone, you'd also have then what players should play on what team. Okay, I'll give you an example. Mason-Dixon line. That's a Pennsylvania-Maryland border. You know that. In fact, Maryland doesn't even identify itself as the thoroughbred state because the Preakness race, they do not identify as the Chesapeake Bay state, not even the checkerboard state after their distinctive flag. Might be my favorite flag. I also like the Ohio flag. It's a pennant. I also like the Tennessee flag a lot, too. Leroy Reeves, you're on the ball. Maryland doesn't even call itself, as it probably could, the other state of distinctive fried chicken. It doesn't even, I can't do that. The shop in Bristol, it's closed now, No, Maryland calls itself the Old Line State, presumably because of the Mason-Dixon line. And again, I'm not getting country music, NASCAR, and accents out of Hagerstown. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I think of the great southern cities. Yeah, I think of New Orleans. I think of Atlanta, Nashville, even of Richmond, someplace like that. I don't get Baltimore. Baltimore, I think of the Orioles. I think of great crab dishes. I think of Frank the Ford. Charming townhouses. I think of that. I'm not getting, southern from Baltimore. I'm just not. And I go on this Maryland rant because one of my favorite players to ever play in the blue-gray game was a Maryland wide receiver named Azizian Abdul-Rauf. Let me say that again. Azizian Abdul-Rauf. Took me a while to be able to say it, and I think I got it right the second time. It's hard to forget anyone named Azizian Abdul-Rauf. He played for Maryland, and for the life of me, I cannot recall. I remember him playing in the bowl game, and I remember him playing in the blue-gray game, but for the life of me, I cannot remember whether this Maryland Terrapin played for the blue or the gray. I'm sorry, I just can't. Anyway. But really, that's okay, because nobody really remembers who won the blue-gray game anyway about 5 seconds after it was played. In fact, the 1999 game, and remember, that's the 4th season of college football overtime, it ended in a 22-22 tie, which makes me wax even more poetic for the blue-gray game because I hate college football overtime. I think it's a big gimmick. I wrote the story in Saturday Down South, the call to get rid of college football overtime. I think it rewards gutlessness, coaches that don't want to go for 2 when they should be going for 2, unlike Army back on the 23rd, which I was very impressed by. Still, though, I racking my brain. Yeah, there were some moments. 86, Paul Palmer. Paul Palmer. Does anybody remember Paul Palmer? He played for the Dallas Cowboys. He was this really short running back. I think he was listed as 5'7". He probably was less than that. He had just finished second in 86 to Vinny Testaverde of Miami in the Heisman race. He went to the blue-gray game because even though Temple had a winning record, I remember they beat Virginia Tech and Norfolk that year. Norfolk, yeah. Temple, not a lot of fans. Afterthought in Philly. No bowl game came to not even with a star attraction like Paul Palmer. So he had decided, I'm a little bit shorter. Not going to go, well, I've got to play in a college all-star game. He played in the blue-gray game. Obviously, Philadelphia school for the blue. Blue won that game 31-7. Paul Palmer was pretty good. I think Paul Palmer actually played running back for the Dallas Cowboys. He was their feature back between Herschel Walker and Emmitt Smith, which that and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee. But another, reading up, Jerry Rice actually, though, did help his stock in the 84 blue-gray game. Scored a couple of touchdowns, one of 60 yards. Now, people knew who Jerry Rice was because he was making all these headlines at Little Mississippi Valley State that year. And, I mean, you're saying, how do you make headlines at Mississippi Valley State? You just should have seen the scores that Mississippi Valley State was putting up in 1984. I think he was going to, it was Jerry World Rice was his nickname. And his quarterback, he later played arena football, was named Willie Moon Tootin. These are nicknames, obviously, World and Moon. But just give you an example, Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils, they had played a hurry-up offense all the time. They scored 70 or more points in 4 of their games that year. And if I went to how many games they scored 40, I mean, basically, they only lost 2 games, and those are the only 2 games they didn't score 40 points all that year long. So Jerry Rice was creating these insane stats at Mississippi Valley State. Mississippi Valley State actually made the playoffs that year. The Division I AA, as they called it at that time. It's now FCS. Gets knocked off by Louisiana Tech, actually. I looked this up. So he goes, plays the blue-gray game, plays real well, catches a couple of touchdown passes. One was a 60-yarder, showed his speed. 49ers drafted him in the first round. Rest is history. Maybe the greatest receiver ever to play football. Who else would you say would be, greater than Jerry Rice? I'm willing to take calls on that, but in 93, some other memory, John Majors is going by John now. He was the coach of the blue team. Consummate Southern John Majors from Lynchburg, Tennessee. His father coaches the University of the South for a generation, for crying out loud. No, John Majors is coaching the blue. This was his second tenure at Pitt, you may remember. So he didn't matter where you were from. It was, where you were coaching at the time. He coached Curtis Martin, his own running back, in the blue-gray game. That was back in 1993. A few years later, Mike Cavan, this was after he left DTSU following the 96 season, went to Southern Methodist. Yeah, he was the coach of the Gray. Cavan never went to a bowl game at SMU. He came real close for 1 year. First year there. They were 6-5. Would have gone to a bowl game. Lost to TCU. It was the only game TCU won all year long. Pat Sullivan's last game, former Heisman winner, knocks SMU out. They're 6-6. And that was it. They were gone, and that was considered the high water mark, this bittersweet season for SMU football for years and years following the death penalty until June Jones got there. But nevertheless, that meant when you're not going to bowl games, you can coach the blue-gray game. And so it made a lot of sense for Mike Cavan to coach the blue-gray game and coach the gray because he went to Robert E. Lee High School down in Georgia. Now, eventually, Kelly Tire pulled out its sponsorship, and the game was soon disbanded. Christmas has become the domain of the NBA, especially the Knicks, who are playing right now against the Sixers. 5 games on the tap in the NBA today. And sometimes, depending on the year, the NFL, 2 games this year. Makes you wonder about, is this 1980? You got the Steelers in Houston, and you got the rematch of Super Bowl 15. Okay, not the same players, obviously. But the Oakland Raiders, still in Oakland. And for that matter, the Philadelphia Eagles. No, Ron Jaworski and Jim Plunkett are not playing. It's Nick Folks and anyway. In fact, since Thanksgiving has become the domain of the Dallas Cowboys, if not the Detroit, well, also the Detroit Lions, let's face facts, never really caught on with the St. Louis Cardinals. That was... But since it's the domain of the Cowboys and the Lions, I'm wondering, could Christmas become the domain of the Pittsburgh Steelers? It's the second straight Christmas they've played. Now, I think that as Christmas plays on Wednesday, and for that matter, Tuesday, you're going to have, you're not going to have games on those days. But otherwise, yeah, I could actually see, because the Cowboys, they wanted the exposure. We want to play on Thanksgiving. I could actually see the other, one of the top two teams in the NFL. Okay, Cowboys get Thanksgiving, Steelers get Christmas. I could actually see that going forward. I'm not so sure how the Rooney family, they're rather devout Catholics and such, but hey, you can remember the Steelers making the playoffs on Christmas Day by virtue of a Monday night loss by the Cincinnati Bengals way back in 1989. There you go. But unfortunately, it's unlikely that the blue-gray game is ever going to come back. It's doomed to follow in the footsteps of the college football all-stars against the NFL champions. You got scouting combines now. You've got a couple other, all-star games. You see the players, they pull out of the bowl games. They don't even, if they're meaningless bowl games, which they basically are, unless they're playing in the playoff game like the Rose Bowl, this sort of thing. But, I think that you're just not going to see it come back. It never was a big attendance draw, so you're not, people aren't going to Montgomery, Alabama to watch the blue-gray game. And besides, with modern media, even with these players from lousy teams playing in a college football all-star game, those lousy teams, even those small college teams, you've got such modern media that the NFL scouts, they can get film on those players real easy in their games. So it's not that big of a deal to, all report on Christmas Day to Montgomery, Alabama and say, ooh, that guy Jerry Rice, he caught 2 touchdown passes. Ooh, that guy is Izzy Abdul Rauf. He's never going to make it with that name. It's just too, just not catchy enough. And one thing that a wide receiver doesn't want to be is not catchy. Ba-dum-bum! But I miss the old blue-gray game. You know why I miss the old blue-gray game? I always looked at it as something of a barometer of Southern college football against Northern college football. Maybe the SEC versus the Big Ten, something like that. Although what that usually would mean is you'd get from the SEC a couple of guys from Vanderbilt playing a couple of guys from Northwestern on the blue, plus, the Paul Palmers or the Curtis Martins or, whatever you'd have mixed around. I guess a Kyle Shermer would be a good quarterback, to play. Shermer is a junior this year, if memory serves. But somebody like that would be, a good player from a losing record. I'm trying to think who else is from there. Anyway, but that's what Big Ten versus SEC. It would have been, something like Indiana comes in, and all that. Oh, that's real representative of the Big Ten. Well, I remember, but, But I guess the real reason why I kind of miss the blue-gray game, it's a game for underdogs. For fans of teams that were lousy to see their stars play just one more time, even if you couldn't figure out their helmet. And also, it was kind of nice to get that, that little Hickory Farm summer sausage and get away from the family for a few minutes on Christmas. Because we all know, sometimes on Christmas, that's the biggest blessing of all. Hey, I'm Marky Billson. Name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now. We're going to break for a sports update. Lots of stuff breaking down of football games that went on. Not the greatest games in the world yesterday. Cowboys out of the playoffs. Talk a little bit about ETSU basketball. A big victory against Georgia Southern and more on Tri-City Sports Now when we come back. I'm Marky Billson. And remember, your calls, call me during a break at 423-743-6124. I'm giving away prizes for you this Christmas. I'm giving gifts.
iHeartRadio, all your favorite favorite music, all your favorite stations, all free. Need a break from the world? Open the iHeartRadio app. Pick a song, a playlist, an artist, or even